Welcome to Until Saturday, Friday afternoon breaking news emergency edition.
It's becoming a tradition, Ari.
Yeah, I know. I was going to go get Asian foot rub today, but that didn't happen. I am Ari Wasserman, joined by my co-host David Ubben for Instant Reaction. News just broke that the Big Ten has suspended Jim Harbaugh for the remainder of the regular season. He is permitted to coach during the week. He just cannot be at the games. I think he is still currently on an airplane from Detroit to State College, Pennsylvania, where Michigan is playing its biggest game of the year against Penn State on Saturday. And I got to tell you, noted Ohio State homer Ari Wasserman hates
That's what
this.
I'm told.
It is a half measure. It makes no sense. The story hasn't been told completely. He is being punished for the information that we have, but it's not the entire story. And I feel like it's just rushed and sloppy. So, Dave, why don't you be the pro Ohio State one? This isn't even an Ohio State discussion.
Yeah,
I don't like that. It feels weird to me for some. It's not right. Am I onto something here, or do you like it?
Well, I think the reason it doesn't feel right, Ari, is because you had to make up a punishment. That's the only option that the Big Ten had here. You know, their sportsmanship clause is very vague, and I think you combine that with sort of the NCAA. I forget what the technical term for the rule is, but basically it doesn't matter if you didn't know. That's essentially what they're combining here to get to where they are here. So I think that's the biggest reason. But yeah, you had to do something, Ari. You had to do something. And I don't think that there was a punishment. Yeah, you did. You had to do something. And I don't think that there is a punishment that makes sense. And get ready for a legal battle. You know, I'm curious if they can get an injunction or how serious this gets, as we have been discussing in recent weeks. Michigan is not short on lawyers that have Michigan's best interest in mind. So we will see how this plays out. But I think it's probably too late to get an emergency injunction now for Saturday, but we'll see in the weeks to come. And I also think, for what it's worth, Ari, the fact that he can still coach during the week adds to the sort of
That's why it's stupid.
Yeah, it adds to the absurdity of it, but it's not. I don't think it's something that's going to affect Michigan on the field that much. I think
they don't have Jim Harbaugh on the field against Penn State or Ohio State. I think that is a thing. Also,
can I read my favorite sentence from the Big Ten's?
I was actually going to read it. I was going to read to the people.
For clarity, the head football coach shall not be present at the game venue on the dates of the games to which this disciplinary action. Here's a question, Ari. If somebody is streaming the sidelines with a phone from the stands, can he watch that? What if
Connor Stallions comes back, buys tickets, and FaceTimes Jim Harbaugh during the game? No.
Yeah.
So here, if you're just joining us now, I know people are trickling in. Jim Harbaugh is suspended for the remainder of the regular season, and here is the explanation from the Big Ten. The Big Ten Conference announced today that the University of Michigan has been found in violation of the Big Ten sportsmanship policy for conducting impermissible in-person scouting operation over multiple years, resulting in an unfair competitive advantage that has compromised the integrity of competition. Big Ten Conference Agreement 10.01 states that the Big Ten Conference expects all contests involving a member institution to be conducted without compromise to any fundamental element of sportsmanship. Such fundamental elements include integrity of the competition, civility toward all, and respect, particularly toward opponents and officials. The fact that the Big Ten is invoking the sportsmanship policy, I think, might open up Pandora's box down the line.
I think you're probably right.
This is like a thing that we are making up as we go to punish a coach for doing something before we got to the end of, for lack of a better term, due process. And what we've done as a result of that has hindered the entire point of the sport, which is to entertain us. So my personal opinion would be, if it were up to me, to allow him to continue to coach and for Michigan to finish out the rest of the year with him as their coach. And I know that Michigan fans love to hear that because it keeps their national championship hopes alive. Then if and when the NCAA completes its investigation with the entire scope of what they were doing, then appropriately punishes him and the program for what they've done with the full scope of all the information.
But Ari,
And I don't know if
they
we'll
broke an
get to that
NCAA
point.
rule. You know they broke an NCAA rule. That much is clear.
So what is this? Is this just like a put a pin in it punishment, and then we'll get to this later? Like, is that like it's like a half measure?
Somewhat.
It's a half measure
Maybe.
under a made-up sportsmanship policy that goes to
Yes.
everything to whether or not your mascot is harassing the cheerleaders. Like that is
Yes.
not like I don't know. I didn't go to Michigan, so I don't have a law degree, but I do not know of any other punishment under this branch of it. Like this is very atypical. It's sped up, it's quick, and it just seems off. Now, I don't know. There's a lot of smart people at Michigan that might try to muddy the waters here. I'm sure litigation is on its way. But to suspend Jim Harbaugh the day before they play at Penn State,
I don't like the time.
while he's on the airplane, it just seems bizarre to me. So
yeah.
I'm gonna get some fingers going, and I'm gonna write a column about this when we're done here. But here's the thing that I am uncomfortable with, and then you tell me if I'm off here.
Okay.
Did Jim Harbaugh know? Do we have the answer to that question? No.
We absolutely have no proof that he knew.
Okay. Do we know the exact scope of how much of a competitive advantage that Michigan had? How extensive?
It's muddy. It's muddy.
Okay. Do we know
I will
beyond a shadow of a doubt when it began?
Hang on. Before we answer that question, I will just say this. If they did, I think that a very strong argument for this helped a lot is it did take a lot of effort to get all of the signs. And you don't do all that work if you don't feel like you're getting a lot of payoff. I don't
know how you have a half-ass suspension for what seems to be a serious matter before all the information is known. That to me, I think is a very fundamental
because you're working basis. Because you're up against a time here. Are you have a conference that is furious, and you can call it torch and pitchfork law, mob rule. You can call it whatever you want, but the reality is Tony Petitti does run the league, but he also represents the league's interests. He represents 14, soon to be 18 members.
Do you think that Greg Sankey would have asked anybody in the SEC about what to do with Alabama?
He's not asking them what to do. They're telling him what they want him to do.
I'm saying, do you think that Greg Sankey would have been put in a position where he felt a pressure cooker to make a decision based on pressure from coaches and athletic directors in their own conference?
If this
or is this a sign of unexperience?
This is such an unprecedented situation because we have not dealt with a situation in college football, certainly at this level, maybe ever, that really made you question, has the integrity of this.
So we disagree. You think this is an appropriate thing? You like this? Because all I see is the Ohio State game is diminished.
I don't know what the right punishment is, but I think you could not go no punishment, Ari. You broke an NCAA rule, and I agree with you that there's a lot of things.
No, they didn't. They broke they broke an
NCAA rule
today. They did. No, I know they did,
well,
but
I know, but you're combining it. That's what you're doing. You're combining that, okay? But the reality is, he broke that rule, the NCAA rule.
But the thing that I don't understand is when the season is over, and they make the playoff. Is he back coaching again? Like what? To what end probably. Is this? Like it's stupid. It's like it is. I'm not saying the man shouldn't be punished, but it is a stupid suspension during an awful time that really it's made up completely. And listen, Nicole Auerbach just tweeted, our best newsbreaker on the athletic staff says the Big Ten says it may impose additional disciplinary actions as more information is received over the course of the NCAA investigation, which allows us to know that if and when the time comes, if we find out that his hand was on the nuclear button, that he could be fired for this. Like honestly, like it's possible that he could be fired for this. And I know
the Big Ten has the power to do that.
No, I'm saying it could result in his punishment being a firing based on not having a choice.
Yeah, maybe. Well,
I mean, it's a serious matter, but my understanding is this is a half punishment.
So what are
critical time?
If you're Tony Petitti, what are you doing?
I would have fined the hell out of him. Why? Okay. Who are we placating to? Like, if you're going to roll your eyes at the idea of a fine, which, by the way, the entire sport is made up of money. Only thing that matters in the sport is money. We have your shitty 12-team playoff because of money. A lot. I don't know. I would have.
Tennessee got $8 million for their recruiting situation.
I would have fined him now if you have to have a disciplinary action, you think that they
You have to have
if,
something.
If you come
You
to the
have to have
point now where you have to have something, I would have fined him. And then the disciplinary actions that have an impact on him and his team on the field, I probably would not have done because we are not at the end of the investigation yet. I don't, and listen to me, I know they did it. Like, I'm with you. I know they did it. Everyone knows they did it. I'm not trying to defend Michigan and say, but I don't understand this. They diminish the product that we're all paying all this money to watch as a result of a half measure punishment. Like, I can't, and also too, if you're a Big Ten coach who was complaining, or you're an Ohio State fan, or a Penn State fan, or a Michigan State fan, does a 3-game suspension scratch your itch? Like, are you no longer bloodthirsty? It doesn't do anything. It's just, and he's coaching in the middle of the week. So, like, who are you actually, like, is it actually a big time punishment? The only thing that it does is it messes up the Ohio State-Michigan game at the end of the year. It's like, okay, well, so now what? The one game that we were all looking forward to all year to watching, the Jim Harbaugh continuous domination, or is Ryan Day? It's like, okay, now there's an asterisk next to that now. It's like, for what? Now all of our entertainment is worse off as a result of some bullshit penalty that doesn't even really seem that big of a deal. 3-game suspension, but he's still coaching the team all week and is calling the plays in practice and helping formulate the game plan. Like, are you suspended or are you not? Like, it's all wishy-washy.
During the week is weird. It's very weird.
It's like, if you're going to suspend the guy, suspend him. Yeah. Everything they did was like slapped together with duct tape and go, oh, well, we made this up. Well, this is I guess what we'll do. But, like, really, does it make any sense? Who's happy today?
That's
do you think question. Brett Bielema's happy today?
No.
You think Michigan State is happy? Do you think that the big snitch Ryan Day is happy?
Well, Ari, that's a poor metric, because either
it's the best metric. No, it's an entertainment product.
Because but you're talking about, how who you're pleasing. If you're going to please Michigan, you do nothing. If you're going to please the rest of the Big Ten, you say you can't have contact with your team until signing day is over. That's the only thing that would make the rest of the league happy, quite frankly. So it's like, I think you could call anything sort of a half measure. I don't know. I mean, they had to make up a punishment, because there is no punishment for this. You had to make one up. And I don't know, I would have been okay with the fine, I guess. This is okay. I don't know. This is, we talked about this, during the week, Ari. There's nothing here that made sense to do. I liked my idea. Okay.
What was your idea?
My idea was that they had to
and then throw feathers on.
No, not the tarring and feathering. No, that Michigan for the rest of the season had to tell opponents what play they were running before they ran it. To either, hey, if it didn't matter, then you don't care, or if it did matter, then that's your penance. You have to pay for that. Obviously, I think the water on that has been muddied, considering the situation with Purdue in the Big Ten championship last year, where, teams are seemingly reliably giving them signs. Now, that's not explicitly illegal, but it does bring into question the thing that I care about, which is
explode.
The competitive element. I care about the
competitive element. You don't think the coordinators knew? They're coaching.
No, all right. They knew the information, but you have to prove whether they knew where the information came from. Me personally, I believe there was a very small, maybe more than maybe one, maybe fewer number of people who knew how he was getting the information. It's not illegal. I think that they bought into the idea that he just was really good at this. Obviously, everyone on staff knew they had signals, and they had this guy that just knew all this stuff. And I think there's a willful ignorance to that, but I don't believe that they knew that he was buying tickets, and you have to prove that before you really drop the hammer. But me personally,
this is like a little hammer. This is like a baby hammer.
Yeah. Well,
I would just prefer to wait. Like, listen,
you can't wait, Ari. You can't wait. You cannot wait.
In this world, why?
Wait. Because there's a season being played right now.
The guy's going to come back when it matters the most.
I know, but you cannot wait and let him continue playing games, continue going on as business as usual. All this is playing on in the back.
Okay, here's also from the Big Ten for more clarification if you want this to get even dumber. From the Big Ten, this is not a sanction of Coach Harbaugh. It is a sanction against the university that, under the extraordinary circumstances presented by this offensive conduct, best fits the violation because preserves the ability for Harbaugh and student athletes to continue competing, but the head coach embodies the university for purposes of its football program.
Yeah. You're penalizing Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. Because
Mitch told me to keep this to 1,400 words. No shot. None. I think that like people wanted justice. This seems fractured.
There is no justice because there's no rule. There's no specific punishment for this. We've never seen this before. This is not something like literally WikiLeaks, as our colleague Bruce Feldman wrote about, is the closest thing to what we've seen. And that was not as egregious as this. That
the Big
was
Ten
more sinister, but not as impactful.
The Big Ten also said on Michigan presenting sign stealing evidence. The conference is unmoved by the university's attempt to downplay its impermissible conduct by asserting that other conference members may have engaged in sign decoding.
Because they didn't break rules doing it. That's why.
Yeah. No, I mean,
that's pretty
like,
straightforward.
Listen, if you call me an Ohio State homer and ever again, like I am out here. No, not anybody listening to this. Like I'm out here like trying to make it feel like it's right. Like I feel like everybody lost today. And when you're trying to make things right, somebody should win. Who won today?
That's
no
that's
one's
a
happy.
bad way
Nobody
to look at it.
Won. Like it's just like, oh, you're making up this thing.
That's a bad way to look at it, Ari, because you either had to, if you wanted to have a winner and a loser today, like I said, you would have had to either give them a pass or absolutely drop the hammer. And you don't have enough evidence or the total picture.
That's my entire point. You just made my entire point.
But Ari,
you don't have enough evidence. You can't do it.
You know they broke a rule. You can do something, but you can't. That's why you have that notice in there that says if we find out more, there can be more punishment because you aren't sure. But you know,
are you
enough,
as excited
Ari,
as a college football reporter to watch the Ohio State Michigan game this year? Are you as excited to watch the Michigan Penn State game on Saturday?
Harbaugh's absence to me will not affect my enjoyment or appreciation of either of those games. I don't really get that argument. But Ari, my point is, you know enough to drop a punishment. You know that they broke an NCAA rule, in-person scouting. You know that happened. There's plenty of evidence, okay? And you know that they did that in an effort to compromise the integrity of the sport and the games that are played, which is, of all the things in the sport, that is what's sacred, okay? Now, you can make the case that the way that the other teams were getting signals could muddy that, and that does muddy it for me in terms of like legacy and how do we view the last 2 years of Michigan football. I don't think I see like, oh, this is fraudulent. I'm not there. But
did you say integrity of the game?
Yes, sorry.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
This is not a sanction of Coach Harbaugh from the Big Ten. I'll read it again. It is a sanction against the university that, under the extraordinary circumstances presented by this offensive conduct, best fits the violation.
Mm-hmm.
The integrity of the game isn't being restored here.
No, but
the coordinators that were calling the plays. Well, they're not. That's what I'm saying. Jim Harbaugh's presence on the sideline doesn't preclude them from the integrity being restored.
Yeah, but already been restored. You're paying a penalty, Ari. At the end of the day, it's not. I don't have any qualms against Jesse Minter or Sharon Moore. Like, if you don't know how they got the information, and that's fair to suggest that they should have known. Should have and did are two very different things. Ignorance and willful ignorance are two very different things.
They knew. They had to have known.
Something. We'll see.
Listen,
I agree.
I don't know anything about this Color Stallions guy, but like, listen, he hasn't really mastered the art of subtlety.
But you got to prove it. Ari, you have to prove it. You need a smoking gun.
So on this, you want to prove it over here, but you don't want to prove it over there?
You've proven that they did something, Ari. Somebody in your program broke NCAA rules. You have to do something now. You know that happened.
So you're like, you read this suspension, you're like, okay, that makes sense.
No punishment was going to make sense, but I know you had to do something. I don't really care about what the punishment is.
I'm going to write a column after this saying that this is a dumb, half-measured punishment, and it makes no sense. And I want you to try to talk me out of it before the commenters come for my neck. Can you do that?
All right. No, because this is a very contentious issue. And I'm sorry if it's not good podcasting, but I think that there's room for a lot of opinions here. I think you had to do something. I don't know what that right thing is, Ari. I don't think that there's something that makes a ton of sense besides my solution, which I do think is actually good, although it would never be done. But like, I don't think there's something that makes sense because this is an unprecedented situation.
There are people in the chat, and Josh, one of our most loyal listeners, somebody I appreciate very much, makes this point. He said, if they cheated, who cares? We need the TV ratings. Was it worth last year when they knew the signs, or was CJ cheated out of a Heisman? I am not suggesting at all that Michigan go unpunished for transgressions. What I am suggesting is, instead of levying a half-assed nonsense suspension that allows the head coach to continue to coach during the week, for them to take their time, don't be sloppy about it.
You can't take your time, Ari. There's games being played in less than 24 hours.
I don't understand this notion of if he
influence.
coaches the Penn State game, how different that is. The integrity of the game that is being played. The Big Ten itself said it's not just on Harbaugh. It's a suspension or a penalty towards Michigan. I just don't know what rushing to it does. It appeases nobody. Nobody is happy about it. Michigan is furious that they've been suspended. The people in the Big Ten might be like, okay, well, he got his slap on his wrist, and there might be more punishment coming. But it's just like, it doesn't sit well with me, even if we know he did it.
It doesn't sit well with me.
What sits well with me is proving beyond the shadow of a doubt with the entire scope of the information and then making a decision to do that. I know that people are furious. I know people on Twitter are mad. I don't know that I feel like they needed to rush to a decision to just make one. I don't know that I agree with that.
You know enough to do something.
But you know enough during murder trials that somebody probably did it, but you don't put them in jail or in an electric jail before
you can't compare that to this, because this has an actual deadline. There's games being played. And you're running a conference where you have 17 members who feel
your argument makes sense. It does. But you know when it stops making sense? When Jim Harbaugh gets on the field in Indy, or if he's playing coach.
I don't even think they can control. I don't even think they can control that. That's not a Big Ten game. I'm not even sure they can control that.
It's just like, okay, well, sit out these games here, Jim, and then just go play, go be full-time coach again in the playoff.
Like that game, they'll be wearing the Big Ten. I mean, I'm not sure, but like that's not a Big Ten competition. That's not under the Big Ten's TV deal. It's not on a Big Ten field. They won't have Big Ten officials. I don't really know.
Then why didn't they suspend him through the end of the conference championship?
That's a good question. It's a good question.
I don't know. It just, yeah. And maybe he will be. I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. They're going to continue to investigate this.
This will be.
I think it is.
Listen, I tell you who did win. Or you know who did win today? Actually,
who?
Folks holding that Juris Doctor, the JD baby. Those people won today because they're about to get paid over the next month. Billable hours.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, it's a good argument, and I feel like we haven't had one in a while, and I think both sides are represented here. And I do believe that Michigan should be punished and will eventually be punished for what they've done. And I hope that whatever we find with the full scope of it is punished appropriately. And that's that. That said, I feel like the season has been tarnished a little bit. Like it just feels like less entertaining to me.
No, it hasn't.
I am 1000% compelled by Ryan Davers, Jim Harbaugh. And if you're not, then do you like the sport?
But Ari, it still kind of is. It's still
not
his program.
I know, but if Ryan Day wins, then Ohio State won because Jim Harbaugh wasn't there. And if they lose, then Harbaugh wasn't there and Ryan Day sucks even more. It's like you want the coaches on the field. It's a rivalry game, shaking hands. Like I feel like people who like Michigan and Ohio State both lost today.
Maybe.
I don't know. Okay, so 24 minutes. I think we did a pretty good job. I'm going to go take a warm, refreshing shower to clear my thoughts, and then I'm going to write.
How much would you fine, Amari?
Millions.
How many millions? 8 figures?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not the commissioner of the Big Ten. All I know is
be thankful you're not the Big Ten commissioner because that's not a great spot to be in.
It's just I feel bad for the guy because he's new, and you don't want to have to deal with this sort of thing. But like,
there's nothing you can do that makes sense. Pointless. There's nothing you can do that be like, well, yeah, that makes sense. This is going to be something that a lot of people are mad about no matter what you do. It is what it is.
There's too many unanswered questions still.
But the questions that you answered are enough answers to do something, to take a half measure because you only have half the answers.
Dave Ubben, thanks so much for boxing with me. I love sparring with you, bud. We will obviously be continuing to track this. And listen, this is chapter 1 of a 28 chapter book. Like, I think that we're just getting started with this sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot to find out about Connor Stallions, which, by the way, is the most compelling.
More
thing to
Connor
me about this
Stallions
whole
content.
thing.
I love it.
more information that will be revealed as the NCAA goes on with this investigation, and we'll see if Jim Harbaugh can figure out a way back onto the sidelines this year. I don't know, Big Ten championship game and beyond, like you said, how that works, but this is the initial reaction to that. So this will be in the podcast feed. If you were late to join, you can obviously rewatch it on YouTube, and Dave and I will be back on Saturday night for our regularly scheduled reaction show. And if you're not subscribed to The Athletic, I strongly suggest you do so. I'm going to make fire flames with my fingers now, and I'm sure Dave probably will too. Thank you so much for listening, guys, and sorry if you're sad. I'm sure everybody is, because it's messed up situation. We will catch you on, bring back the turnover chain. We'll see you on Saturday.